And what a wonderful day. And I was just listening to the presentation at the governor's level because everything that they have to do with federal money, they have to talk about it publicly. And apparently, they want the innovation zones here in Nevada in a town called Story. I don't know about Story. But I did go online and I did read about innovation zones and the intent behind the federal government in building back better and innovation zones. Just like they had promise zones. How does it feel over there in the promise zone area? When you're not working, you're not controlling the money, my people. And you're not even controlling the data. You're not controlling the lack of outcomes. This is America. And the America that I always knew, at least in California, you could speak your mind. You could meet with your elected representatives. That's a possibility. But when you talk with them here, they know all that you know already. They don't got time for your conversation and really no time to listen. So I have taken to the net, all these social programs to talk about my concerns about the African American community because I can see the African American community and I can see that most people just would prefer to pretend that they don't see the devastation that I see, but they see it. And it's hard to live around. It's hard to visualize people who are struggling every day. But we know that happens. And if your job has to do with dealing with those struggling people, it's a concern because we have to concern ourselves with the lack of outcomes and the lack of maintenance for the public service sector here in the state of Nevada because the county doesn't partner with the city and the city don't have no real partnerships with the local districts. And these people are just so flexible with the federal money. It's just like, I love peanut butter sandwiches. It's coming. No, it's not coming. The reality is that all federal money has regulations, a requirement for participatory guidance, meaning that the citizens have something to say. And for whatever reason, our citizens are saying nothing. People who look like me, not at the table. And even if they participate at the table, they're not coming back and strategizing with the community. What is this? When we too are the American citizens, and we choose not to say shit, just want to be quiet. Hopefully nobody pays attention, right? No. I was fortunate in other words, to have this workers' comp injury, to understand, the conditions of the human body and how much the body can actually take of toxic, basically, chemicals that your body actually just absorbs when you're in that kind of condition. And the body does respond to the chemicals that it absorbs because it's called chronic pain. It's called inflammation. And your body's just fighting all this inflammation. Then they give you medication that lasts 2-3 hours. But after that, that's not called an addiction. No, that's not called an addiction. That's called pain management. That's what they want you to do, is just think about the pain as if it's not there. And I'm sorry. Pain is pain. And you learn to deal with it. And hopefully you don't get white hair like me. But it's okay. Ooh, I'm just not trying to get the stress lines and the wrinkles. And I didn't even have to really stress because I was always able to be an effective communicator. But here in the state of Nevada, well, people will refuse to return your phone calls. And then when you do communicate with them, they disagree with what you're saying. And damn, if I didn't know that this was 2021, I would say that perhaps I jump back in time. Because black people come here and they perform on the strip and they go about their merry way. They don't really try to have a conversation. And when they have come on public broadcast station or whatever, talked about their concerns about what they saw in America as they're living, their best life. And they ain't got time to deal with you. You got me? Living my best life. Ain't got time to deal with you. The word, right? it's offensive to them. It would be offensive if they said it to me. But it's offensive to them if they see our history and we post it on our Facebook page. And they just get incensed. But the mere fact that in 2021, we are talking about the inability to exercise freedom of speech. Problem. We don't all have to go and gather anymore. You know, it used to be that we would have to go to these meetings, and I was part of the lodge, and, you know, in the lodge for people who couldn't read. Hello. Social justice. I hope we can have some social justice in 2021. But anybody's welcome to join this. This is just a conversation, and I always have to talk to myself because sometimes I really can't believe what I'm hearing. So today, and you can go on and look right now that, you know, the Nevada Department, the legislatures, they're having the governor's meeting to talk about innovation zones. And when I first read about innovation zones, it was kind of like the promise zones that were established, you know, for the Black Boys Conference, you know, that Obama has endorsed Nevada's program. But it's unfortunate because, you know, it's all established around getting mentors and moving children out of their schools where they're getting credits and putting them in programs where people have been given grants for behavior modification. And that's what these kids are getting. And I'm saying, well, how are they going to eat off of that? What is happening here? Because what is social and emotional learning? I have not decided that I understood that yet. That it is something that, you know, that is learned. And all behavior is learned. But when you understand that education is about modifying behavior, and it doesn't state which behaviors, it's just a modification of behavior. But what it does state in the law, in those, you know, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, is that they can't create something different for you than they have established for themselves. And I'm sorry to come here to Nevada and to have to meet with Roxanne over there at the NAACP, or it's just a name, I met her. And then that Yvette that's over the Black Chamber, that's a real name. I mean, that's her name. I met her. But to not have the ability to sit down and have a conversation. Hey, Mrs. Johnson. Yes, to have a conversation about the inability to talk about failed services, as we are Americans too. But where do we talk about the lack of outcomes and the lack of maintenance? And what is social promotion? Because why should our children attend public schools? And this is the law. It's called compulsory laws. Try not to attend school and see what happens to you. I can promise you that a SARB or truancy notice will be sent to your parent. And if your parent doesn't get it together, well, they'll just come in and take the children. And understand that there was an intent behind kinship. But not everybody gets the federal money for kinship. And actually, Nevada, if you go back and listen to their legislative meetings, they were told that they were implementing restrictive rules or compliance measures in the kinship grants for the federal government. And they said that all people would qualify for, all, you know, grandparents would qualify for that money. And that's what the intent of the money was for. It's just unfortunate that we had black legislators, and I knew it was a black woman that I was listening, and she was trying to figure out, well, what do you mean? Nevada's rules were too restrictive. Well, that's just what it means. I don't believe that my people who look like me, at least even the older parents, understand that failure was just never an option in public education. And as it stands, our children are being promoted without making any progress. And where would this conversation exist? As it does not exist. And I'm saying, wow. So I was able, as a single parent, to be blessed and to lose my job working for Los Rios Community College District in Sacramento, I was working at Cosumnes River College in the mailroom, where I was in charge of the keys for the campus. I was in charge of the maintenance to ensure that the vans were washed and cleaned. And I was responsible to cut keys. And then when it got to the point, and do the mail. And then all of a sudden, I was the only one in there doing the mail. And I filed a complaint. Well, why file a complaint, right? They took me out like lightning. They fired me. Well, they didn't really fire me. What they did was gave me a workers' comp and told me that I could not perform the jobs and the duties that I was working because I couldn't cut keys, although that was just not written in a administrative clerk's job description for administrative clerk 3. And so it really, you can just talk about the past and understand that the past happened, but guess what? The universe has blessed me beyond my comprehension. I was able to raise my sons, and I had 3, and I tried 3 times, 3 different men. But there's something wrong with a lot of men, a lot of people who look like us. Simply, we find far too few who are willing to commit to a permanent relationship with a woman. I taught my sons to not have children if they didn't ever want to be treated the way their fathers treated them. And a blessing, I was just awarded with a new gift. I am a grandmother, and I am 63 years old. And I am blessed. And I'm assuming that I have 2 more sons, and eventually I'll have more grandchildren. Hopefully I'll be here to help to ensure access happens for them. But don't you understand that freedom was never free? And if you fight, you win. Every fight. Because America is based on engaging communities and communities coming together. I mean, here in Nevada, it amazed me that they had this little secret. They want to put together these innovation zones, but innovation zones are for areas of where they're struggling to ensure access happens for all people, and the lack of educational opportunities has been so low, and they've just never been able to make it work. So innovation zones have a lot more flexibility than anything else, and what I thought they could have done here in Clark County is to establish the first African-American college, historically black college, in 2021. Since we're now all voting members, Juneteenth established that we all have rights. But you see, our children are not making it here because they have established a program called the Harbor. And I cannot find any data on the Harbor, yet and still. The conversation at the legislative level was that we're 15,000 children who went through the Harbor. You just can't figure out what race they were. But I think we all understand when 48% of our children are in the foster care system, African Americans that is, and then they have an 88% population of juveniles facilities. But then they have other programs that are operating like camps, where kids are stored. Because if they're removing all these children, and they said they had 15,000 to go through the Harbor, well, just think about where those children actually are. And then they have a population of 250,000 homeless people living in Nevada. And that would be, I don't know what parts of Nevada, but hell, we're in the desert. And what goes on here is criminal behavior. Because when it comes down to people who are legislating but not getting all the information and making decisions based on lobbyists who have an intentional benefit, I'm sorry. They should not be hiring lobbyists to implement federal programs, but that's what they do. They certainly do it. Because I'm just trying to figure out how this happens. And then I hear them. Then I understand I'm not a lobbyist. And I listen simply through sheer enjoyment. It is something I enjoy doing. And I enjoy listening. When I was growing up and first Bush was in the office, I was younger then. And then baby Bush was in the office. But I watched C-SPAN, and I watched C-SPAN because I'm just a total junkie of C-SPAN, and you can go on C-SPAN and watch any of the past legislative meetings and anything you want to know about anybody who ever participated in governance is stored on C-SPAN, and that is, provided through, what do you call these? Comcast and cable carriers. But if you log on, you can still go, as long as you're not watching live, you can still log on and watch whatever you want to watch. But I'm sure that, sometimes on C-SPAN 3, they wouldn't let you get in C-SPAN 3 because, it was conditions of strategies that America was intending to implement, and perhaps they didn't want everybody to know. But I'm just trying to tell you something. You are limited by your own personal choices to limit yourself, because I am free. And I understand that they feel that I'm a Medici. That's a meddler. Well, Jim Sweeney did too. But, what he did was, he was an amazing, gifted person. I mean, he wasn't that bad of a superintendent, actually, but I just didn't like what he had done. So while he was superintendent of Sacramento City Unified School District, I could see what he had done. He had started hiring all of the administrators, and they became his employees, and he was like double dipping and taking their retirement and putting it into his own thing, and he started this whole retirement scheme thing. And he had his own business, and he wrote a book, and I don't know, maybe he was successful. I don't think he ever really retired, because I think when he retired and he still gets the money from the coffers of the government. And that's just real. But every superintendent that works in public education continues to get paid. Just want you to understand that. It's a retirement opportunity. And it was back then when, benefits were real. But he retired with $500,000, and so did Maggie Mejia. She retired on $500,000, but including health care. I mean, it's not like they have to give back. But you wouldn't even know what's going on unless you actually showed up to the meetings. And I know for years, and I used to record myself when I went to the meetings. I'd go online and download it, or watch it on PBS, and then I would record myself and save the meeting, and then share just my public opinion or my thought process behind whatever was going on. But I always paid attention, and I don't understand how people don't pay attention here. They come here and they're on vacation, but we have to live here, and we're responsible for public services and broken services and people not making it, because we all pay. In a manner of speaking, everybody pays a certain amount of taxes. It's how those benefits are utilized. But when they were talking about using that money for the innovation loan, like it was just total straight money with no accountability, and I'm saying, wow, boo, you got it all twisted. But I think we have a lot more educated black people who are whatever you would like to be considered, formerly African American, whatever. The real deal is that it is time for my educated community to come together and talk. We cannot continue to accept that I didn't even know that, what's his name? God, I can't even think of it right now. But people get murdered here every day, and nobody does anything. But when we all have to understand that we as American citizens too were forced to listen to George Floyd cry for his mother every day, and then we understand that somebody got killed for selling CDs in front of a store, and because he was interfering with that store's business. Do you understand? City councils make rules and regulations that implement us, but they do not hold accountable local school districts to ensure that we even have basic access, because our kids are being pushed on the street without even meeting minimal standards. And I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. In 2021, the word is e pluribus unum. Out of many, there will be one, but out of one, there would be none if we just allowed them to represent one themselves. So as freedom was never free, and this is 2021, it is time for all my fellow Americans, as that's what I am, just an American citizen, free and single and happy to be me. And you will be too when you start being heard about being totally unhappy with the inability to have a conversation. You know, even out there in the historic West Side, they had a meeting out there, that city council person out there for historic West Side. And they wanted to talk about perhaps having a museum that represented the black culture or the African American culture or the historical perspective of my people here in the state of Nevada. But you have to understand, Sammy Davis Jr., I mean, there's a little monument to him, but no. What would make a difference is if we had a university that dealt with entertainers and entertainment, and that our children could thrive. You get me? Thrive. Because Innovation Zone is going to have to be able to utilize a university that would benefit my people, as they have stolen from my people forever. Let's understand, charter schools do not qualify for federal money. Should I say that again? Private schools do not qualify for federal dollars. But we're in a make-it-work state. Hey, sister. My sister's on here. Hey, Teresa. Yeah, but we're in a make-it-work state. And no matter where you work, if you're working with disabled and the handicapped, then you're getting a benefit. And so, you know, why are they not paying for Social Security and other benefits and retirement for you? I mean, you just have to wonder why so many people are sitting over there working at the Goodwill. Go to the Goodwills here. I love Goodwills here on Saturdays. They have dollar days, and I've just become hooked. I have to pray about it. Because I love it. And, I have to say hello to my sister there. And but you know, this is America, and we allow life to happen by pretending that we have no control. But Stacey Abrams pulled the community together, and believe me, I believe she won. But it really didn't matter, because people who want to maintain power will be willing to lie and do whatever they can do. I mean, why is it that we still have no answer for the person who made an allegation for Emmett Till, and then for her to come out and tell the truth? But she lived with a lie. But think about what happened to his family. I mean, the persecution of our people simply is unacceptable. But then we have our people who would just, they don't know any better. So I have to keep on, and they have to accept where they are, because they just don't understand. Title I is Title I. And Title I has certain regulations that require parental involvement. And Head Start has certain regulations that require growth and development and parental involvement. And that's of all the children. So what they do is they just don't let you in. You're not in there, so you ain't getting no parental involvement. I mean, how many African Americans are enrolled in Early Start? Where are the numbers? I mean, everybody can go and look at the numbers now. So let us all go look at the census. Oh, your community didn't participate in the census? How did that happen? It's real. This is 2021, and the personal responsibility is personal. And we don't know what tomorrow holds, but we do know today holds an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to stand up, and an opportunity to understand that it is us that we're looking for. So contact your local official and explain. Ask them, how are they supporting the children who are generating the American Rescue money, the Gear Up money, the CARES money, and any other federal grant that is operated here in the state of Nevada, as they don't have the data that would demonstrate that those children are being provided any services, because they're not. And that's just as simple as it is. And that's our fault as local community members, because local control is where we live. And if you understand that technology is out there, understand that it brings a whole new day and a whole new revelation, simply because you can log on and in your spare time watch the community meetings for the ones that they do post. But understand, these people know how to have meetings and not document that they're having meetings and make a lot of choices. And yes, the power of the legislative branch and the governor branch is huge, but the obligation to the regulations is major. So if you don't have the data, then you don't have the data, and you did things to demonstrate that the children who were generating the money just didn't benefit from the money. But it's time to stand up, my fellow Americans, and demand change. As if we stand together, we will win. And, I've tried to work within the community members who are here, but, sometimes people feel that, establishing a presence, standing in the front of the group will establish a benefit, and it just doesn't. Knowledge is power in America. Read the 13th and 14th and the 15th amendments to the Constitution. Read the public law that establishes federal money to help states support the inhabitants, their citizens, and understand the intended purpose and the use of the federal dollars. And go back. I don't have to keep on talking about the same thing every day. This is a repetitive, because if you didn't live it, you have no idea. But failure was never free and never intended. And what they can talk about is prisons here. They can talk about judicial enforcement. They can talk about rules violators, but understand who establishes the rules and who's violating the rules, simply because the truth is that not all people have the same access. And you cannot place restrictive implementation of public services and expect a child or anybody to thrive. 2021. Let's get this done before 2022, shall we? Let's all understand what the American Rescue Plan and the Gear Up money and the innovation zones and the intent behind federal dollars. And let's understand we, the people, must establish a baseline for the children on the bottom so that we can all rise to the top. Later, y'all.